Hello and welcome to Hardtalk India. In a country where NGOs and the press together allege that human rights abuses are rampant and rife, how effective is India's National Human Rights Commission? Is it a powerful and strong body, or is it weak and imperfect? That's the central question that I shall put today to the chairman of the NHRC, former Chief Justice Adarsh Sen Anand. Chief Justice Anand, let me start with a blunt question.
Yes.
How effective is the commission that you head?
Well, Commission is quite effective, but there are certain weaknesses which are inherent in the Act itself. Now, for example, there are some provisions like Section 36 which prevent us from looking into the violation of human rights if they have occurred 1 year before the matter comes before us. Also, if some other commission has been appointed to look into it, we can't look into it.
So in other words, you can be precluded both by factors of time and by political action to appoint someone else rather than you.
Other commissions.
But in fact, the weaknesses go further. Let me put it to you that unlike, for instance, the Election Commission, you don't have constitutional status. Unlike the Intelligence Bureau, you're not funded directly from the Consolidated Fund. You are dependent on money or a grant from the Home Ministry.
No, that's not correct. As a matter of fact, our budget is sanctioned by the Parliament. The government cannot appropriate, government cannot do anything about that budget. That is one very great factor.
But you don't have constitutional status.
Well, constitutional status in the sense that the statutory act which came about.
But not like the Election Commission, which is a part of the Constitution.
No.
Because a parliamentary act can be changed by parliamentary action. A part of the Constitution is much more difficult to violate.
You're right, absolutely right.
So you accept that?
You're right, absolutely
right. It's
right.
also said that 98% of your staff come to you on deputation from the government, and many of it is said, come from the intelligence agencies.
No, not correct. That's not too correct.
What's the figure?
Because I think the 50 to 60% are on deputation, and that is, though we have, that we can ask for deputation, or we can recruit ourselves.
But if 50 to 60% come on deputation, which is your figure, rather than the 98% which NGOs claim, it means that those people owe their loyalty to their parent organization rather than to you.
No, once they come to us, then they are subject to our discipline and to our direction.
Except that they return to their parent organization where their careers continue.
Well, some of them do.
Most of them, I would imagine.
But many of them retire from here itself.
But those that do return to the government, and therefore their loyalty remains with the state rather than you.
Well, I won't dispute that, but we haven't had an experience where a person who has gone back has been a hindrance in the working of the Commission.
The worst infirmity is that you don't have powers to investigate alleged human rights abuses committed by the armed forces, which means that by and large, the entire area of Kashmir, where these abuses, according to the press, are said to be happening, is beyond your jurisdiction.
Mr. Thapa, so far as Kashmir is concerned, the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993, that excludes Jammu and Kashmir.
But that
Jammu and Kashmir has an act of its own.
But the infirmity that in fact stops you from investigating, which is even greater than this exclusion, is the infirmity which says that you cannot investigate anything to do with alleged human rights atrocities or abuses committed by the armed forces. It simply precludes you not just from Kashmir, even from Manipur and the northeast.
No, what we are precluded from is to inquire into or investigate ourselves. But we can ask for reports from the government, and when we get the report on the action taken by them or not taken by them, we can take follow-up action.
Except that the government will only tell you what they want to tell you. The real power is to investigate yourself. That is denied to you.
As a matter of fact, there is an anomaly, and this is a weakness.
You accept that?
This is a weakness, and that is why in the year 2000, a recommendation was made to the government to amend this and give power to the NHRC.
But it's been ignored so far.
Well, they have not brought out any amendment. We had made suggestions in the year 2000.
Even your reports are often sat upon by the Home Ministry before they are tabled in Parliament. The most recent report to be tabled is for the year 2002-2003, and it's already over 2 years old.
Absolutely correct. And we have been complaining, we have been telling them that, all right, if you don't want to table it in the Parliament in time, because you have also to give an action taken report, permit us to make it public.
And they won't permit that either.
No.
So this is what I'm saying. Even a report from a body that is supposedly independent can't be made public without the government's permission.
No, it's not supposedly independent. It is independent.
Except for the fact that you can't make your report public.
We can't make a report
So
public. That is a parliamentary procedure.
But that is a clamp on your independence.
That's a parliamentary procedure. It's not on our working.
But it's a parliamentary procedure the government could change if it wanted to. It chooses not to.
Well, the government could, but when the report goes to them, they have also to put the action taken report with
But
it.
they take sometimes up to 2 years.
They take a lot of time, not some time.
Would you agree with me that to make the commission more effective, you need constitutional status, you need greater powers, you need better independent funding?
Well, funding, we have no problem.
Constitutional status?
Constitutional status, I have my doubts.
Doubts that you'll get it or doubts that you need it?
No, that we need it. Because these recommendatory bodies, after all, let's go into the background, why these commissions were set up. The
If you don't need constitutional status, do you need wider powers?
Yes, certainly.
Emphatically so?
Absolutely.
And have you asked the government?
We have.
But they haven't agreed.
Well, so far, they have not said no, but they have not agreed.
In other words, they've ignored the request.
Well, they keep on telling us that it is under our consideration, and sometimes they even go to the extent of saying active consideration, whatever that means.
But that means nothing, that's just words.
Yes.
Let's come to the manner in which members of your commission are chosen and the sort of people that are appointed to your commission. In December 2003, shortly after you took over as chairman, the government appointed a senior retired police officer, a director of the Central Bureau of Investigation. It was hotly contested. The matter went all the way to the Supreme Court. I want to ask you bluntly, do you think it is fitting that retired police officers should be appointed to a human rights commission?
Well, it was not in 2003, let me tell you.
December 2003?
No.
That's when it first happened?
No.
It eventually got okayed by the Supreme Court in 2004.
No, no. Even the appointment.
But do you think it's fitting that a retired police officer...
As a matter of fact, let me tell you, now that the Supreme Court has okayed that appointment, we will have to accept it because whatever the Supreme Court says is the law of the land.
No, but forgive me, they okayed it in terms of its legality. I'm talking about its desirability.
That's exactly what I'm coming to. So as desirability is concerned, earlier there was an objection raised to the appointment of a person who has been in the police force.
Quite right, and justifiably so.
And at that time, the then Home Minister dropped the proposal. Subsequently, again a proposal was mooted. I objected to it.
When you say you objected, how strongly did you object?
Well, I objected because when the law minister...
No, but how strongly?
Very strongly.
But then how come the gentleman went on to join the commission?
Because under the Act, the chairman has not to be consulted, and that is a drawback in the Act.
It's said that your predecessor, Chief Justice Verma, faced an identical situation when the then government wanted to appoint to the commission a police officer of very high rank. He threatened to resign and force the government to withdraw the nomination. Why could you not have taken similar measures yourself?
That's not absolutely correct, but...
Forgive me, I've double-checked this with the gentleman concerned.
Now, I'm telling you that so far as that part is concerned, and that is the then Home Minister wrote on the file, we dropped this proposal. And the same Home Minister okays this, despite my objection, and even after the announcement is made in the paper, I wrote to the Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister, requesting him, please intervene. I have nothing, so far as the person is concerned, I am on a matter of principle.
Should you not, therefore, on a matter of principle, have resigned?
Because under the Act, I have not to be consulted, and that was their stand.
Maybe you did not need to be technically consulted, but your commission and its reputation and the confidence with which it's held was going to be affected. If you had gone public, you might have shamed the government into withdrawing this nomination.
And to what consequence?
Let me quote to you what Justice Sabharwal of the Supreme Court of India said when this matter came to him. He said, the credibility of such an institution depends upon a high degree of public confidence. This appointment has shaken that public confidence.
That was my objection when I wrote to the Prime Minister and I informed the Home Minister.
But then why didn't you resign on the issue?
There was no question of resigning on the issue because technically I could not be consulted.
Let me put this to you. Do you believe that it is suitable that a Human Rights Commission, which faces many allegations against the police forces of the state, should have as a member a retired senior police officer who will then sit on those cases and investigate them? Is that fitting?
That is why I objected. In my opinion, it is not fitting, but that is why I objected. But once the warrant of the president comes, we honor it.
Would you say that you failed to actually change the government's attitude and thinking?
They were bent upon doing it.
They rode roughshod over your objection?
They did. And as a matter of fact, though they promised that they'll come back to me before they process the file, they did not come back
So
to
you
me.
see, they rode roughshod over your objection. They promised to come back to you, as you say, and they didn't. And yet you swallowed it. You didn't resign on this issue.
No, there was no question of resigning. As I said, that to run away from a situation is not to meet a situation.
Let's talk about how the National Commission for Human Rights functions. NGOs allege that you do not protect your complainants, you do not protect your witnesses, their names are readily revealed to the authorities.
Well, I don't see there's any logic or factually correct statement.
Well, let me quote to you from the Asian Center for Human Rights in a report published last September. They say, the NHRC has no protection mechanism for those who cooperate with it. The NHRC routinely forwards copies of complaints to the concerned authorities, thereby exposing the complainants to the authorities who can take retaliatory measures.
As a matter of fact, that is the procedure under the Act.
But is it a right procedure?
Well, there is no other way.
But if I write to you alleging human rights atrocities,
how do we ask?
And you reveal my name to the authorities, they can take measures against me which would be undesirable, to say the least.
Mr. Thapar, supposing somebody makes a complaint to us saying that this is what the police is doing, and we want to know from the police, how do we know it without telling them who has told it to
But
us?
why do you need to give the name of the complainant? You simply need to inquire whether the police is doing it, whether the allegation referred to you is correct.
Against whom? We have to tell them that Mr. X complains this. It is not a general that public is complaining. That is not the
So
sort
you're
of thing.
saying that the Asian Center for Human Rights is
Their
either
perception is
wrong,
incorrect.
their perception is incorrect,
Incorrect.
that in fact you are forced by the situation and by circumstances and by necessity of procedure to reveal
necessity
names?
of procedure and necessity of taking action.
Then tell me something else, because the NGOs also say on the other side, when they are concerned parties and they ask you for inspection of files, you refuse to reveal it to them. They also say, well, they say so. I can quote to you, Ravi Nair, Executive Director of South Asia Human Rights Documentation Center, says that whenever his center, as a concerned party, asks to inspect files, it's refused. So you reveal names as a procedure to the government, but you won't reveal details to the NGOs.
Only when they're the complainants, these are revealed to them. Otherwise, they are not a party.
Doesn't this mean that you're losing confidence in the very eyes of the public and in the very eyes of the NGOs where you should be held in high esteem?
I don't think that is correct, because if that is the measure, then last year we received 74,000 complaints as against 593, and only about 20,000 in 98, 99.
Let me put this to you. In a speech in April in Geneva to the Commission on Human Rights, you said, and I'm going to quote your words, whenever and wherever the human dignity of a citizen is violated while he is in the custody of the state, the flag of civilization must fly half-mast. Did you really mean those words?
Absolutely, and it is not the first time I've said so. I've said so in a judicial pronouncement also, given from the Supreme Court.
You see yourself, therefore, as a proactive rather than a reactive chairman.
Well, I don't know how you mean reactive and proactive.
A man who's
I am active. That's
a
it.
man who is prepared to put himself out, not wait for others to alert him, who would champion human rights at the first hint that they are being trampled upon.
We have done so.
And that is how you see your job.
That is how we take suo motu action.
But then in which case, explain this to me. Why have you not taken steps to persuade the government of India to ratify the Convention on Torture in a country where the third degree is rampant?
We have been recommending this to them time and again. We have written to them. It is a part of our annual reports. But ratification has to come by the government.
if
please
on
don't
every,
forget
no, but if
that
on every
NHRC is only a
instance,
recommendatory body.
sure, but if on every instance when you write and recommend, whether it's to do with people appointed to the commission, whether it's to do with powers that you feel you should have, whether it's to do with ratifying conventions on torture, if in every instance your recommendation and your letters is ignored, then don't you need to take some measure of public action to point this out?
Well, public knows it. We have made it public. I have said so from various platforms that the amendments proposed by us, and mind you, they were proposed by a very high-powered committee.
I put it to you that perhaps you need to go more high profile. You need to complain against the government rather than be so understanding of the government.
That has been complained again in the annual reports, but, Mr. Harper, we have received tremendous support from the media. We also receive support from the NGOs. And we expect the parliamentarians who keep on sending complaints to us
to support you, but they don't. But they don't.
Well,
and why don't you go more public in the interest of the Indian people whose human rights you are here to defend?
Public in the sense?
Of complaining to the press that you're not being listened to when you recommend?
That's precisely what I said. Media supports us on that. But that
the media is not aware of the extent to which you're checked by the government. It's coming out for the first time in this interview.
No, they are aware of it. And as a matter of fact, there have been number of articles which have been written.
Why don't you publish the letters that you've written which have been ignored by the government?
Those have also been brought out.
And ignored?
No. Well, ignored by whom?
Let me put this to you. Let me take up Gujarat. It's perhaps the worst instance in the last 20 years of human rights disaster that India has faced. No doubt, your commission scored a major victory when the Supreme Court agreed to relook at some 2,108 cases last year in August. Since then, 1,614 have been looked into, 585 have been opened up, but 1,029 have been kept shut. Now, the Supreme Court in its judgment had made crystal clear that if a case was not to be reopened, explanations had to be published on the net. That hasn't happened, and so far the NGOs say you haven't protested either.
We can't, because the matter is in the Supreme Court, and it is for the Supreme Court to take action against the government.
But you could go back to the Supreme Court and alert them that this is a case that could perhaps qualify for contempt of court, the police failing to abide by the Supreme Court's decision.
The Supreme Court grants them time to report to them. We can't interfere in the work of the Supreme Court.
You cannot even go to the Supreme Court to advise them on a situation where you believe the Supreme Court's own judgment is being violated by the police?
Where it was necessary, we did go to the Supreme Court.
You don't think it's necessary here?
No, we can't, because this is a matter for the Supreme Court itself, since it is monitoring that.
In which case, let me point this out to you.
And they appointed an amicus.
Let me point this out. The National Human Rights Commission itself petitioned the Supreme Court to hand over 10 important Gujarat cases to the CBI for investigation. Of those 10, 1 Best Bakery has been handed to the CBI. 9 others have not, including Naroda Patia and Gulbar. Yet you haven't protested.
We have, and as a matter of fact, in those 9 cases also, the Supreme Court has stayed the proceedings in the courts in which they had been instituted.
But they haven't been handed over to the CBI as you wanted.
Well, Supreme Court is still seized of the matter.
You are pursuing it?
Supreme Court has taken cognizance of it. We are a petitioner before it.
But could you not have gone back, because 3 years have passed since the actual incidents themselves? If today they were to be handed over to the CBI, evidence would be clearly unavailable. Most of it is lost. Every day's delay means that the CBI becomes ineffective if it is handed the cases. So can't you go back to the Supreme Court and point this out?
We have been to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court has asked for reports. Supreme Court has stayed those proceedings. And we expect the Supreme Court to pass appropriate orders.
But then point this out to me. If you are doing your best to pursue matters that you have raised, why do the NGOs almost uniformly feel that you are not pursuing the matter, that you are allowing yourself to delay things, to be dilatory in your response?
Well, I don't think that is correct, because the NGOs who come to us, they tell us that how well you are doing and what is being done.
So they're saying something else behind your back and something to your face.
That's for you to guess.
You really,
if they have said so,
I've named 2 of the people. You're really saying to me that the NGOs say one thing to your face and something else to the world outside.
That's not correct. That's not what I said. I said that NGOs come to us. I have not named A, B, C, D and NGOs.
Let me point something else out. The NHRC in its order of April 18, 2002 and then again May 31, 2002 had said, and I quote, "Action should be initiated to identify and proceed against those who have failed to act appropriately to control the violence in Gujarat in its incipient stage." No action of any nature has been initiated so far.
We have made recommendations.
Is that
we
all?
have not initiated
But could you
actions.
not pursue these recommendations?
No, no.
Why?
No, because we can only make a recommendation to the state to take action or to launch prosecution. That is why I said
Why
in the
can't you
beginning.
go public to the press and say that we have strongly
We have.
But the press needs to be reminded. If you did it when the order was originally issued 3
No,
years
no,
ago.
no, no.
not
Even
since then.
subsequently. Even subsequently.
No one's
Please
picked
forget.
it up. No one's picked it up.
Well, I think some papers did pick it up.
Let me remind you of
but
something else.
I expect that the media would also be very vigilant to see. that
You
this-
need to surely use the media to your benefit to correct the image that the commission under you is functioning dedicatedly. The NGOs are giving a different impression of the commission under you.
Well, I don't think they are correct. And I don't think it is all the NGOs, maybe one or two. And why they are saying so, I don't know.
Would you
The
say,
same NGOs have also been praising us. Let
would
me
you
tell
say,
that.
would you say that some NGOs are therefore, if not most NGOs, talking with two tongues?
Well, I'm not saying anything of the kind. What I'm saying is, if some NGOs have complained, well, they have a reason of their
Are
own.
you
for
a
it.
misunderstood man, Justice Anand?
I don't
Are
think
you
so
more
in that sense.
sinned against than sinning?
In this context, you mean?
Yes.
I think so.
These allegations are unfair,
Unfair in the sense?
that they are suggesting that you are taking your job casually.
Well, if they are suggesting that I'm taking job casually, they are absolutely unfair.
You are dedicated to pursuing human rights at any cost,
Absolutely.
regardless of how unpopular you become in the eyes of the sitting government.
Well, absolutely. I have no problem so far as that is concerned.
You are not scared of incurring the displeasure of the government of the day.
Not at all. I have never been.
Human rights is your principal and primary prerogative,
Indeed.
and that will be the way it always will be.
It shall be. It shall always be.
So everyone who
There would be no compromise. These human rights are, you can't compromise, and they are inalienable.
Chief
They
Justice
can't be
Anand,
negotiated.
a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.